Good morning and welcome to today's discussion about mobile security. I just wanted to go through some housekeeping. The top of your screen, or there'll be a banner on the screen where you can ask questions. So click on Q&A if you have any questions to ask. I also would like to know if you can actually hear me. Because I don't know exactly if my audio is working. So if you can put in the chat whether or not you can hear me, that would be wonderful. So I'm assuming everything's okay. So welcome. Today we are going to talk about mobile security and especially the questions that you don't know or the things you don't know about mobile security, and it's all about the questions you ask. So I just want to do a quick introduction of the art of service and myself, Ivanka Menken, and then we go into mobile security and the power of questions. And of course, there's a Q&A at the end. And then after the Q&A, I have some bonuses for you as well. So let's get cracking. The Art of Service. The Art of Service is my company. And I started it, my business partner and I, we started it in 2000 in Australia. And we provide consultancy and education services, both face-to-face and online. And over the years, we have really started to work towards helping professionals unleash their potential. So we do this through the use of the self-assessment toolkits. We do this through education services. We do this through all sorts of content that we provide specifically for professionals. And most of our clients work at Fortune 500 companies or as independent consultants. So that's sort of like the two sides of the spectrum where people either work for really large corporations or they work as an independent consultant. And then this is me. My name is Ivanka Menken, and since 1998, I have been offering consulting services, and specifically around strategy, transformation, and process improvement. And it's all about being more effective, being more efficient, and working towards your goals and targets. And as I said earlier, in 2000, we started the Art of Service. And since 2017, I also started coaching startup companies and high growth companies to achieve their goals and to really, really work towards their growth strategies, which is lots of fun. And I really enjoy that. But today we're talking about mobile security and the power of questions. And the reason why I wanted to have this discussion is because as professionals, we don't really know what we don't know. And as I said earlier in my introduction, I've been doing consultancy since 1998, and you sort of tend to get a bit complacent that you know the things that you know, and you don't even realize that you don't know certain things. And that's why in the toolkits, we've created self-assessment toolkits where every question in the self-assessment toolkit has to be answered with, in my belief, the answer to the following question is clearly defined. So it makes you think not just about, do I know the answer of the question, but for my specific scenario, for my specific customer, for the organization that I work for, is the answer to this question clearly defined or not? Do we understand what this question means? Do we understand the context of the question? So it goes a lot further than just saying yes or no as an answer to a question. These self-assessment toolkits you can use for yourself to check your own understanding, but you can also use them for your client's organization. And this is the type of questions that you would need to ask yourself, specifically around mobile security. So the questions that we've offered for you to check whether you know all these answers, to check whether or not you know that these answers are clearly defined. We've organized all these questions based on maturity levels in an organization. So it starts with recognizing that there is such a thing as mobile security, recognizing that we may have a need for mobile security. So some sample questions are, what are the security issues for mobile applications? Or what situation led to this mobile security self-assessment? So this is very basic. It's at the foundation of understanding what mobile security can do for you. And then the next step, define, that's where you start to define what mobile security actually means in your scenario, in your context. So sample questions could be, have the customer needs been translated into specific measurable requirements? And how did we do that? So just think about, from a mobile security point of view, do you know how to answer this question? Is the answer to this question clearly defined? Have customer needs been translated into specific, measurable requirements? Not just fluff, but specific and measurable. And then what is the scope of our mobile security effort? Because everybody who's done anything with any type of quality standards know that scope is super important. So the definition of mobile security within your organization, that's when you start talking about scope. And then once you start implementing some processes around mobile security, you need to start measuring. So how do you know that any mobile security analysis is complete and comprehensive? So again, that links back to the scope, but it's a level above, so it has a little bit more maturity. So we're now talking about, how do we measure this? How do we understand that it is complete and comprehensive? And then who participated in the data collection for measurement? Because from an auditing point of view, you may have to go back to that person later on down the track to understand to what depth and to what breadth the data collection has been done. So see how this goes into higher levels of maturity all the time. So you start with recognizing, then defining, measuring. Now, once we have the raw data, you can then start to analyze, like, is sensitive data stored in cookies? Is it secured or encrypted? So what do we actually do with the data? Do we need to classify data on mobile devices? Because we're talking specifically on mobile security. So what kind of data classification do we need? And again, these are just sample questions. These are just samples out of a really large collection of questions that is part of the toolkit. You know, in total, there's about 1,000 questions. So I just cherry picked a couple of questions for the purpose of this this conversation. Now that we've analyzed, we can improve. And mobile security, there's a lot of technology included. There's a lot of business processes included. So we need to do our improvement, not just on the technical part of mobile security, but also need to do improvement on the processes surrounding mobile security. So how do mobile apps affect your organization's application security risk profile? So it's not about the application, but it's the application of the organization's security risk profile. Because I'm assuming that within IT security or your security policies in itself, you have a risk profile identified for your organization. So how do mobile apps affect this risk profile? Will it increase or decrease? So do we have a clear definition of what that means to the organization? And again, we're going back to, in my opinion, how clearly is the answer to this question defined? And then what tools were most useful during the improvement phase? Because we may need to do a debrief at the end of the first level of the improvement project and go like, you know what? These tools were really useful. These tools were not so useful. And that's part of improvement as well. It's not just improving the technology used to perform mobile security. It is also the tools that we use to improve the actual improvement projects of mobile security. And then the last two is all about control and sustaining. So is there a recommended audit plan for routine surveillance inspections of mobile security gains? What are the mobile device and mobile operating system standards? So this is to have control over every step in the process. So controlling the triggers of the processes, controlling mobile security in itself, the technology surrounding mobile security, controlling the inputs and the outputs, and controlling the improvements, controlling the audits. So this is really understanding and being being able to control every part of the process means that you can tweak any part of the process. So if you have control, you can adjust. If you don't have control, you can't adjust. Well, you're probably adjusting without even knowing that you're adjusting. So this control step is really quite refined and not easy to do. So that's why this is the second last step in the maturity range. And then the final one, now that we have control and we know exactly what we're doing, how do we sustain this? So what will the vendor provide for product installation and configuration support moving forward? How can we sustain our current levels of quality? How can we sustain our current levels of security? And is antivirus software deployed on endpoints to detect malicious code, not just on the desktop, but we're talking specifically around mobile security. And it sort of seems that this is a sequential process. You start with recognize, you start with define, and then you do measure and analyze. But all this is bundled in together. So the questions that you ask have to be across all these areas. The questions that you ask in relation to mobile security have to be across every maturity step of the processes. And what you'll find is when you do ask these questions is that, as a sample, most of the questions in the recognize section are answered with strongly agree. You understand it. There's a clearly defined answer. It is embedded in the organization. We know what's going on. And then across the steps of the maturity level, there is less and less confidence that we have clearly defined answers. And this gives you a really good cross-section of the organization. It also gives you a really good cross-section of your own understanding of mobile security. Hope that makes sense. So the colors are, the dark purple is strongly agree, then the green or minty color is agree, then yellow is neutral, the burgundy color is disagree, and then the lavender color is strongly disagree. So these are the results from going through the whole self-assessment toolkit. So the all 1,000 questions or 500 questions or 49 questions, depending on how many questions you want to go through. And then once you've done all that, you have something to work on. So whether or not it is having a clear understanding of the things you don't know about mobile security, because those are questions you didn't know how to answer. There was no clearly defined answer. You weren't confident that that is the answer to the question, or within the organization. But say this is for you. This is your test result. This is your answers. Then out of that answer set is a RACI matrix. So you know exactly what to work on to improve your own understanding of mobile security. And in this case, problem definition and motivation clearly presented, what should be considered when identifying available resources, constraints, and deadlines, and are there any revenue recognition issues? So those are the areas where you don't have a strong understanding of how clearly that is defined within your client's organization, or you don't have a clear understanding of what that means within the context of mobile security. So that gives you something to work on. That gives you something to do some research on, that gives you something to get more training on. So this is really to help you to get better in understanding mobile security. And then, for example, in the sustain area, is application security testing carried out in the environment? What does the business think of security? And how do you secure senior management commitment? So that is more a strategic and more a soft skills kind of approach that is lacking in mobile security for this particular data set. So see how these kind of questions really help you to understand where the gaps are in your knowledge about mobile security, where the gaps are in your understanding of implementing mobile security and implementing it for your customer or to improve the process of mobile security. So that's where these questions really, really help. Then you can also use these questions as discussion or conversation starters. So say, for argument's sake, you need to prepare a brief or you need to do a presentation for stakeholders or executive management, what you do is you go to the checklists that are in the toolkit, and based on the questions that are in the large self-assessment database or the spreadsheet, we have collated the questions specifically applying to access, application, data, mobile, organization, security, and wireless. So you can walk through these and just cherry pick certain questions that you want to discuss with your boss or with your team or with your client or with the stakeholders. And so, for example, what kind of security protection is enabled? So what is currently enabled? And then the follow-up question could be, and how is that working for you? Is there anything we need to do in addition to that? So these questions, these checklists, have the same questions that are in the large spreadsheet, but very pointed towards a particular subject. So that will really help as well. And then the third type of questions, those are the questions that are specifically about improvement projects. So if you want to start implementing mobile security, if you want to improve the mobile security processes within the organization, or you want to improve your own understanding of mobile security, you look to the project management documents. And that's where you get checklists again, but specifically focused on different steps in the project. So for example, this is an earned value status report, which is part of the monitoring and controlling process group. So this status report will have a bunch of questions and then a template. So all the work is done for you. All the questions are there. You just have to use the questions. You just have to basically fill in the blanks, and you can use these templates. It's super easy. So we really try to make it as easy for you as possible. Yeah, so that was really a quick overview. I wanted to go back to these questions. As I said, you can use the 1,000 questions that are in your spreadsheet for your own understanding of mobile security. You can use these questions for getting a better understanding of these mobile security questions within the context of your organization. And that's probably why, like I said earlier, some of our clients are VPs, C-level executives in Fortune 500 companies, because they need to know this. They need to know this at a strategic level, at a high level, or need to have an understanding of where their company is going. Or if you are an independent consultant or you work within the security field, it may be a really easy step for you to get a better understanding of your gaps in your knowledge of mobile security. So that's really what I wanted to discuss. And the questions, let me have a look. So there's some questions on, okay, the question is there any learning content around mobile security in the toolkits themselves? At this stage, no, because it is all around question-based consultancy. So if you hire a business coach or a strategic coach, the first thing they do is they ask you lots and lots and lots of questions to understand where your gaps are and where they can be of value to you in that particular situation. So that's what we're doing here with the toolkits. So the questions that we ask are to help you understand where you need to learn more and to start the discussion, to start the conversation. And for example, let's go back to these checklists. Who tests application security? I mean, that may seem like a really simple question, but that could be the conversation starter for a 30-minute discussion on exactly what applications are we talking about? Like, what mobile applications do we have that we need to test the security on? Who is impacted by the application security issues that may surround this particular mobile app? Testing, who's testing it? But then the follow-up question could be, what kind of access to application data do they need for testing? And what's the implication of this person testing application security in relation to our disaster recovery processes. So that there'll be lots of follow-up questions, and there'll be lots of, it's sort of spin-off questions. Let's pick another one. How do you prevent users from using weak passphrases to improve the security of WPA PSK wireless network without sacrificing the system usability? Well, that could be a workshop in itself. Just that question, how do you prevent users from using weak passphrases? So that involves soft skills, that involves an education or an awareness program, that involves understanding the system usability and understanding how end users use the system and what they find easy or hard to do. So a simple question like this could have a major impact. So don't go through this question and go like, oh yeah, that's an easy question, or no, use this as conversation starter and just see what happens. Just see what happens. And if you don't know the answer, and that's the educational part of it, then you start looking for the theory component, or that's when you start looking for the specific content. But it always starts with questions. The questions is the chunk of your consultancy or your services that add value to the organization. And you, as the subject matter expert, you can then provide the meat. You can then provide the specific theory. But this is to make you think, this is to make your company think, this is to make your client think. And then based on that, once you've started that thought process, that's when you start filling in the blanks with the pieces of the puzzle. So hope that makes sense. Okay, the second question is about these project documents. So in each of the toolkits, there are 3 different folders. There is a folder with the checklists. There's actually 4 folders. There's a folder with the checklist. There's a folder with a sample of the self-assessment questions. And there's the full self-assessment with the 1,000 questions. And then folder number 4 is project management resources. So once you know what you want to implement, once you know what you want to do, go through these questions. Even though you may already have a project management methodology, even though you already have templates and project methods, still go through these questions, because at the very least it's a tick and flick. At the very least it's a, oh yep, we do that. How much is it going to cost by the finish of this project? Yeah, we know that. What's the unit of forecast value? Let me think about that one. Do we really understand what the unit is? Where's evidence-based earned value in your organization reported? Yep, we know. So you can really tick through all these questions and go like, just making sure that you don't forget things or you don't make assumptions. And that's what I started out with at the beginning of this, because we've been working in this industry for so long. You make assumptions and you don't even know that you make assumptions. And that's the tricky bit. And by going through these questions and going through these checklists, you step away from assumptions and you really tick off whether or not you're doing this particular step in your project. So very, very important. And then the templates, they're really simple ways to get the momentum in your project. So you don't have to think about creating templates. You don't have to think about creating documents. That's all been done for you. And it may not be exactly the way you would like to use them, well then change them. But you have a skeleton, you have a basis, and that is so much easier to change from a basis than to start from scratch. Okay, so to help you with mobile security and to help you with getting the conversation started, I can send you the security checklist with questions. So that is basically the questions, this one. There's more questions underneath. So I can send you that one for free by just answering your email. So if you send me an email to ivanka@outofservice.com.au with the question, please send me the checklist, then I'll be more than happy to provide that to you. So you can have a look at the type of questions that are in that checklist, and you can start using it from there and then. So that really helps you to get started. And then as a bonus for members, we have a membership program. And that membership program gives 60% discount on all toolkit purchases. So to become a member is $125 a year. So that's US dollars a year. But then after that, you get 60% off each and every toolkit you purchase for the next 12 months. So that's a really good bonus for, well, we think at least, a really good bonus for members that are interested in toolkits. So that includes the mobile security toolkit, but any of the other toolkits that we have available. And so those were the two bonuses that I wanted to share with you. So the free gift, email me at ivanka@artofservice.com.au to get that list, to get the checklist. And I will add this in the chat box as well. There you go. So that's the URL to the to sign up page for the annual membership. And like I said, it's $125 a year, but it gets you 60% discount on all toolkit purchases. So if you buy two toolkits a year, you already have your membership you're way ahead of it. Okay, I promise you 30 minutes. It is 28 minutes past 7. So I would say over and out. Thank you so much for attending. And by all means, if you have any questions, email me at ivanka@artofservice.com.au, and I'm more than happy to continue the conversation via email. Thank you very much. Bye.